Hi, everyone. Happy holidays and welcome to our final edition of InsideTauck for 2021. My name is Dustin Smith. I work here on the marketing team at Tauck, and thank you for taking the time to join us today from wherever you happen to be logging in from. This event series, InsideTauck, is our monthly events designed to educate, inform, inspire future travel. And we tap into our wonderful partners, our tour architects, our tour directors from around the world to give you just a small taste of what you can expect on tour with Tauck. Today we have a really special presentation to end the year with our great partner out in Rome, Olga. And she will be introduced by Brenda McKellar, who I will tell you about in just a second. But just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Just so you know, you were joining us today on Zoom webinar. You are all on mute. If you do have questions, please type them into the chat function. I will be looking at that throughout. I will answer what I can throughout the presentation, but Olga and Brenda are really the experts on Rome and Italy, so I will wait till the end and I will ask those questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can as possible. I know many of you probably have questions about your upcoming travel, and first of all, we thank you for your booking. We won't be getting into any specifics about traveling today. If you do have or want to ask those questions, I urge you to contact our reservation sales counselors, and they will be able to answer those for you. The presentation today will last roughly 1 hour. It is being recorded and will be available for later viewing if you need to jump off early. We're also streaming live on Facebook, so if you want to invite a friend last minute, or if you have any technical difficulties with Zoom and you want to jump on Facebook, you can find us on Tauck's Facebook page. And lastly, we will be sharing a bunch of images and some short video clips throughout. You do have the option to toggle a black or gray bar, vertical bar on your screen, left or right, to either make myself, the speaker, bigger, Olga, or the pictures bigger. So you do that at your own leisure. Okay, I think that's it. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Brenda McKellar. She is our tour architect for all things Italy. She plans all of our Italian journeys, including our bridges family trips, and she will have the pleasure of introducing Olga today. So Brenda, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dustin, and good evening, good afternoon, or good morning to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us. You are in for such a treat this evening, because Olga is one of my favorite partners. And we go back to 2010 when we worked on a Roman holiday event together, our Tauck's 85th anniversary event. And we've become friends ever since. And Olga currently manages all of our Tauck Bridges tours, of which we have one coming up next week, a holiday bridges departure, which we're delighted to have this season, ending out the year. Olga is a licensed tour guide of Rome and the Vatican City, but she also has a master's degree in arts management from the American University of Rome. She is probably the most knowledgeable guide I know, and she's planned a special show for you this evening with her own photographs. So I'm sure you're really going to enjoy. She also has a wonderful website that she will talk to at the end of the program, but she offers some wonderful webinars on her website if you ever want to learn a little bit more about Rome. And we've got 7 or 8 itineraries with Tauck that come through this magnificent city. And without further ado, I would like to present Olga. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. Enjoy, everyone.
Well, thank you, Brenda, so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and present my beloved Rome, the capital of the world. They say it's an old way of calling Rome Caput Mundi. It does go back to the ancient times when it was the capital of the empire, of the ancient Roman Empire, but kind of stuck and remained, and eternal city, Caput Mundi. Rome has so many names. And this photograph was taken at the Piazza Venezia, the main square, with this monument that's, let's say, generally known as the wedding cake, but we shouldn't call it like that here officially because it does have a name, Vittoriano, dedicated to the first king of United Italy, Victor Emmanuel. And this is now Piazza Venezia from a different angle, and this impressive monument that's, well, only about 100 years old. You know, in Rome, it's like yesterday, but it has fascinating history. But before getting to Rome, I would just like to remind you, as if you didn't know, that there are so many amazing places to visit in Italy. It never ends. You could spend 3 lifetimes going between Venice and Cinque Terre and Florence, Umbria, Perugia, Rome, Sorrento, Amalfi, the Bay of Naples, Sicily, Sardinia, Puglia, you just name it. But I'll just mention really briefly a few places that are included in the tours that take you to Rome as well. I took this photograph in 2017, and those hands coming out from the Grand Canal are no longer there. They're part of the exhibition of the Biennale, and they were done by Lorenzo Quinn, the son of the more famous, maybe for my generation and older, famous father, Anthony Quinn. And Florence, the cradle of the Renaissance, in the middle of the rolling hills of Tuscany, one of the most famous regions in the world. You may go to the so-called quieter sister of Tuscany, which is Umbria. This is a lovely cathedral in Orvieto, a charming small town perched on a volcanic cliff, really, really impressive. Or you may decide to go down south and enjoy even some Arab Norman architecture. This is the cathedral of the small town of Amalfi, which gave name to the coast, Amalfi Coast, south of Naples. And this is Positano, one of the most beautiful places on this planet, perched on the cliff. And nearby, a bigger city, let's say Sorrento, facing the amazing Bay of Naples. Naples is an extraordinary city with so many sides to it, but you just forget about hassle-free vacation, let's say. But it's one of the most charming places on this earth, with this ill-mannered volcano, Vesuvius, looming beyond the bay. And of course, talking about Vesuvius, you would like to go to Pompeii, the city that was covered with the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD. And as Wolfgang von Goethe said, never a disaster was a source of so much delight for future generations. That is basically the only place where you can see ancient Roman roads preserved so well, because they were encapsulated in the eruption. And talking about the roads, well, we know that all roads lead to Rome. And now we have jumped into the ancient Roman Forum. This is one of the roads that you can see there. But before I start talking about Rome and the different sites, I will be mentioning some of the sites that we do visit on our tours with Tauck, and also some others that you may would like to visit either during your free time if you're on a tour, or if you come independently. If you decide to come a little bit earlier or stay later, you really would have an embarrassment of choice. But I would like to show you, just to give you a very general idea about where we will be going. The center, the historical center of Rome, is right in the center of this map. And I will try to use my cursor. I hope you can all see it. You see here, there is the famous Pantheon, which we are going to take a look at. Then we're going to see the Piazza Navona, arguably the most beautiful square in Rome. And going more to the right on the map, there is a Trevi Fountain. And more north, Piazza di Spagna, the famous Spanish Steps. And all the way up at the top, there's this huge garden, beautiful Villa Borghese, where there is the Gallery Borghese, also one of the most exciting and beautiful museums that we have in Rome. There is no shortage. And all the way to the right is the railway station, just to give you an idea about what these big lines are. But south of the railway station, now I'm here at, let's say, southeast, where there is the red M for San Giovanni. That is the name of the Cathedral of Rome, or St. John in Lateran, here at the bottom. To the right, and even farther south, there is a site called the Baths of Caracalla. I'm going to show you that as well. Just one slide, the ancient ruins where we used to go with some tour groups, and I hope we'll go again. And then Circus Maximus, the stadium where they used to have chariot races. Now it's a big empty space. That is a monument in itself. And then farther, a little bit more north, you see where there's another red sign. There is a Colosseum. These M's are the metro stops. But okay, here's the Colosseum. And then you go more to the left or towards west, Roman Forum, the ruins of ancient Roman Forum. And if you cross to the river, which we call in English Tiber, but in Italian it's Tevere. So there is this shabby chic, but expensive. You know, when you see something shabby, it's chic, well, it's expensive. But it's a really, really charming neighborhood called Tras Tevere, across the Tiber. In the middle is the little island, Isola Tiberina. If you cross the island, you would find yourselves in the Jewish ghetto, which is another one of those shabby chic neighborhoods full of history, pleasant and unpleasant, obviously, and also great food. We're going to pay a short visit to the Jewish ghetto as well. And then crossing the river more northwest, here is the Vatican City. Well, that's where there is the Basilica of St. Peter's, the Sistine Chapel, and the Vatican Museums. So we're going to talk more or less about these places that I have briefly mentioned, and you will have the map in the event recorded, so you can go back to the map and see where these sites are located. It's not easy to remember, by the way, if you haven't been to Rome. And back to the ancient Roman Forum. What does forum mean? There are several theories about the origin of the word, but they're all equally boring. What it came to mean is a place where people gathered for social, political, religious purposes. It's a sort of a social media of the past, and it's a valley that was drained in the 6th century BC with a huge canal called the Cloaca Maxima, like the huge sewer, basically. And it's full of ancient temples, basilicas, which back then meant like the courthouses. And it's visitable, obviously, and it is one of the most exciting places to see in Rome. This is the Capitol Hill, where there was the center of the political life. For example, this building that you're looking at with the bell tower is today the town hall, but in the Middle Ages, it was the Senate. And at the bottom, where you see those arches, that was the archive, state archive, already in the 1st century BC. So it really goes back a long way. And it's a sort of a double-faced hill. So if you approached it from the opposite side, which is the actual entrance to the hill, that's what you would see. The architecture we owe to one and only Michelangelo. Now, back to the ancient Roman Forum. This is the view from the Capitol Hill. And we see, again, the temples, the triumphal arches. There are only 3 triumphal arches that remain in Rome out of approximately 30 that used to be there in the ancient times. And far away, the far end, you can see the Colosseum, which we will get back to. Of course, the churches as well that were built on top of ancient Roman monuments, frequently within the temples. We're going to see that again. And inside the forum, you may stumble upon or go on purpose to a place where Julius Caesar was cremated. There was a temple dedicated to him by his adopted son, Augustus, and he was the first man to be deified. And for some reason, there are still people who, well, bring flowers to Julius Caesar. Well, why is that? I really don't know. But the little coins, there have been there in all the places where people were trying for some luck. So little coins, you can find them everywhere. People just saying a little prayer, saying a little wish. I don't know what Julius Caesar has to do with that, but they're there. And another gorgeous view from the Capitol Hill is at the Imperial Fora, which is the plural of the forum. See the extension of the temples and the basilicas, the forums or fora, I should say, of different emperors, divided by that gray wall, which is igneous, so built of a volcanic rock. It used to divide the back then poor neighborhood called Suburra from the official center of the capital of the empire. You see a big empty space and a large road, but that's modern. That's the result of Mussolini's destruction, actually, of the many layers of history to create this road for his military parades in the late 1930s. It's like the artery for traffic between the ancient Roman Forum and the Imperial Fora. Now, talking about the ruins, well, there's the embarrassment of choice. These are the baths of Caracalla. Caracalla was the emperor in the 3rd century, and the thermal baths were built for all the people of Rome. There were 11 huge public baths. Of course, wealthy people had their own. They were called balnea, but the public baths were the thermal baths of Caracalla. Today, they are the stage for operas and shows and ballets. It's an amazing sight. And more ruins, but in the very heart of Rome, there is this square where 4 temples were discovered from the Republican times, so before the empire. And that goes back to the discovery goes back to the 1920s. And this is where Julius Caesar was actually assassinated, because the building of the Senate was under the construction during the times of his rule as a part of the triumvirate. And this is now a square called Torre Argentina. Now, Pantheon, we must always mention the Pantheon, one of the most exciting and unique buildings in the world. It was a former temple, most likely dedicated to all the gods, which the name says, like Pan, Theon, Pan, all Theo, God, all right, so Pantheon, but there are also other theories, but I would like to show it to you also inside, because from the outside, it looks just like a gigantic cylinder with a relatively shallow dome on top. But when you go inside, and we do, during our tours, we go inside and this is really overwhelming, this huge dome that is made of one monolith piece of concrete. And yes, that's the hole. And when it rains, well, it rains because it's a hole. But there are all these stories about how mysterious the Pantheon is. And when it rains, it doesn't rain, it does. But the Romans made them the drains. So the water is safely taken to the sewer. There's so much to say about the Pantheon. We could spend this whole presentation just talking about it, but I wanted to show it just briefly what it's about, not what it's all about. That would require much more time. And that's not the only building that became a church. Pantheon is a church today. It's a basilica ever since it was proclaimed such in the 7th century, but there are more churches that were built within the ancient Roman temples. This is Saint Nicholas, built within an ancient Roman temple. Or there's a lot of building material that was used, recycled from ancient Rome for the churches, or the palaces of either popes or whoever was in power, noble families. And this is one of the 4 papal basilicas, St. Mary Major, and it has the 40 columns from a nearby temple from the Esquiline Hill, where it's located. And this is one of the most beautiful churches in Rome. And again, it's one of the 4 major basilicas. Only 4 basilicas have that title, the papal ones. And it was, for example, the ceiling was gilded with the first gold that came from Americas. And it contains one of the most important relics of the Christianity, the Holy Crib of Jesus Christ. And here is, according to the tradition, there's so much in Rome to talk about the relics and the pilgrimages. And here is the Pope Pius IX, recent Pope actually for the history in the 1800s. And he's represented in this humble praying position, as if he were a pilgrim. And if you were a pilgrim, you would definitely want to go to the Cathedral of Rome, St. John in Lateran. What you see on this slide is the first on the left is the cathedral, which is the title of a church where there is the cathedra of the bishop. The Bishop of Rome is Pope. So Pope is one busy man, and he's the head of a state as well, of course. And the orange building are the offices of the Vatican, the so-called Lateran Palace. And the structure to the right is the so-called Scala Santa, the Holy Stairs. We're going to get there as well. The cathedral is marked by an ancient Egyptian obelisk. So you're looking at the cathedral, you don't see it. But if you approach it from St. Mary Major, if you're on the pilgrim's route, you will see this biggest, oldest obelisk that we have in Rome, brought from Egypt. It goes back to the 15th century BC. And it used to be in the Circus Maximus, where they had the chariot races. And it was the part of the urban organization of the Pope Sixtus V, who had a brilliant idea to use some of these obelisks as a sort of a, I call them GPS for the pilgrims. So which way do I go? Well, there's a pagan monument, but it's not pagan anymore because it has a cross at the top. It was Christianized. And inside the cathedral is, I'm going to say it is Baroque, but it was actually Baroqued up because there were many other styles that you can see, like, for example, the Gothic, which is very rare in Rome. There's also an extraordinary cloister. It's a lovely, lovely church, and not to mention the mother of all the churches. And across the street, there is that small building with the so-called Scala Santa, the holy stairs, that, according to the tradition, are the stairs that Saint Helen, mother of Emperor Constantine, brought from Jerusalem, and the pilgrims are climbing them on their knees. We used to go there as a part of our program for the Roman holiday event that Brenda mentioned at the beginning, but of course we didn't go on our knees. But there are the stairs on the side that take you, if you wish to go, to a small chapel that used to be the private chapel of the popes before the Sistine Chapel. There are these extraordinary 13th century mosaics and so much more to talk about. One of the holiest places in Rome, especially, of course, for the pilgrims. And I will mention just one more of the papal basilicas, St. Paul outside the walls. This is where the tomb of Paul is, the apostle. And it never disappoints. Sometimes when we have logistical issues, for example, there is all of a sudden there is some kind of event at St. Peter's and we cannot go. We offer St. Paul as an alternative, and no one ever left unsatisfied, because it's not just about this whole structure that mainly goes back to about 150 years ago, because a huge part of the basilica was destroyed in a big fire, but there are also sections which remain from the past, and the tomb of St. Paul in itself, and the portraits of all the popes, starting from Peter to this day. There's plenty to see at St. Paul outside the walls. And in order to go to St. Peter's or the Vatican, we have to cross the river. We have to cross either this bridge or many of other bridges, but I chose to show this one because it is so historical. And it's called Ponte Sisto because the Pope who built it, his name was Sixtus IV, and it's the same Pope who built the Sistine Chapel. And you see the hole in the middle of the bridge, and it's not there just for the decoration, although it looks lovely. But in case of a very heavy rain, in a sense of a long period of heavy rain, this river used to flood tremendously, and the hole releases the pressure of the water and prevents the bridge from breaking. And again, it's a pedestrian bridge today. And far away, you can see the dome of the St. Peter's Basilica. So here we are at St. Peter's Square. I would like to show it to you a little better with another obelisk that was brought from Egypt, but was made by ancient Romans. That the last building that we just are looking at, that's the building that's known as the Apostolic Palace. And that is where the popes usually live. At the top floor, there is the papal apartment. The current Pope Francesco, he chose to live in the residential area. So, but he does respect, of course, the tradition of showing up at the balcony, at the window of, let me show you, the second window, top floor, second window from the right is the study of the papal apartments, and the Pope shows up there every Sunday, 12 o'clock to bless everyone. And we visit the St. Peter's Basilica, doing our tours, and also this tiny little building to the right. You see this little roof with the lightning rod. Well, that's the Sistine Chapel. We'll get to that. But here is St. Peter's Basilica below the dome, which was originally designed by Michelangelo, then completed actually 20 years after his death. And it's right above this baldacchino, the main altar that was designed by the genius of Baroque, the inventor of Baroque, Gian Lorenzo Bernini. So baldacchinos are made of fabric normally, but of course here he made it of bronze, but as if it were a curtain. So with the curtains and the pom-poms. So he mixed the genres, the style, and the painting and sculpting and architecture. So thanks to Bernini, we have so much in Rome. We do the tours, just covering just Bernini's architecture and art. And now the Sistine Chapel. But to get to the Sistine Chapel, we cannot simply just climb from the St. Peter's Basilica, but we have to go to the Vatican museums. And that is the visit that is always included. And we have this special treat to be there just by ourselves, just the talk groups. And we go also to visit briefly the chambers or Raphael's rooms. Those were the apartments of Julius II, painted by Raphael and his pupils. Most importantly, we get to see this fresco that's known as the School of Athens, where Raphael represented the triumph of truth. He actually painted a concept by representing these smart people from the past all the way to his time. Some are the portraits of the contemporaries. For example, in the very center, you see these two gentlemen in the middle of the arch. Those are Plato and Aristotle. Where Plato to the left is the portrait of Leonardo da Vinci, who was a contemporary. But most importantly, there's Heraclitus, but this is actually homage to Michelangelo. Raphael was about 10 years younger. They were working at the same time. Raphael in the Pope's apartments, Michelangelo in the Pope's private chapel, painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And Raphael represented Michelangelo after having seen the ceiling and falling in love with his muscular frames. He became what we call Michelangelesque. And he represented Michelangelo the way he would have represented himself. You see that huge knee, those bones, those shoulders. And the inspiration came from some ancient Roman statues, of which some are in the possession of the Vatican museums. This is the famous torso, which inspired not only Michelangelo, but also artists like Picasso, Rodin, the thinker. And less known fact is that it inspired Jackson Pollock as well. There was an amazing exhibition in Florence some years ago with the drawings Jackson Pollock made of the torso and of the creation of Adam. This is what we get to see in the Sistine Chapel. See both Adam and God have this incredible six-pack inspired by the torso, and God is represented as a man in his prime with the face and the head of a mature man. So he's transmitting both wisdom and strength. And the handsome Adam, he's not standing because he can't. It's only one part of his body actually has come to life in front of our eyes, and the remaining part, just look at his right hand, is still not alive. But it's just one, it will be in a minute, but it's just one of the amazing 9 panels in the center of the ceiling with the creation of the world. But Michelangelo did not only paint that, he came back when he was in his 60s, and he painted the Last Judgment. So we entered the Sistine Chapel through that little door that's on our right here, and we find the Last Judgment immediately to our right. Took him 5 years. And this is an old photo of one of our tours. If you see any people, they're not my group, it's another Talk group. So it's really just for us. If you have been to the Vatican museums during the day, then when we say that the crowds at the Vatican museums, you know what we are talking about. So this is a very special treat. And we leave the museums down this double spiral ramp that goes back to the 1930s, but also was inspiration to Frank Lloyd Wright for Guggenheim Museum in New York. So it's all very impressive, but if you just would like to decompress and spend some time walking around the charming streets of Rome, here is Trastevere. again, across the Tiber, where that became one of those shabby chic, expensive neighborhoods. Or, of course, the ghetto. The ghetto is on everybody's list for history, for cultural tours. Of course, there is a Jewish museum. This is a synagogue, the Great Synagogue of Rome, built in 1904, because the actual ghetto does not really exist anymore. It was replaced by this new neighborhood because during the urbanization of Rome in the late 1800s, some of the neighborhoods, many of the neighborhoods that were in a bad shape were replaced by new modern structures. So here is the synagogue. But around what used to be the ghetto, there are older buildings, for example, the part of the so-called Portico d'Ottavia that goes back to the times of Emperor Augustus. And apart from the history and culture, we do go to the ghetto a lot for great food, absolutely great food. There's so many excellent restaurants, and most famously, everybody wants to taste Jewish artichoke. It's not really Jewish artichoke, but Jewish style, double fried crispy artichokes. But you have to start your day with something. And in Italy, you will start with one of these marvels that anywhere else on this planet would be desserts. But in Italy, they're mainly breakfast a deal. And you see me with my friends, there's a cappuccino. We're always joking, after 10 o'clock, there's a cappuccino police, maybe until 11, if they are more indulgent. Cappuccino police, so it's a breakfast thing, but it is just obviously a joke because you can have whatever you like whenever you want. But let's say that Italians would normally have a cappuccino for breakfast and espresso. And these amazing sweets are, for example, you could choose here at the top to the left, there are the cannoli or cannolo is one, cannoli is plural. That's Sicilian, typically Sicilian with ricotta. And here to the right that's what I love, the maritozzo, typically Roman, a little sweet bun with whipped cream. And then in the front row, there are the sfogliatella from Naples area. So great way to start your day. And then come lunch, you would like to have something light. I'll just mention a few things that are very typically Roman. For example, this is also southern Italy a lot because bufala, mozzarella di bufala comes from southern Italy, and of course lovely cherry tomatoes and little basil for the patriotic combination of colors, like a pizza margherita as well, the same combination of colors and ingredients. And if you're in Rome, and that's where we are, so I would recommend carbonara with a big cheek and a great combination of like eggs and pecorino cheese. And you would like to have cacio and pepe, which is also typically a Roman recipe, not common anywhere else, which is used milk, so pecorino and just pepper, no cream, no. Or you would like to just have a slice of pizza and some prosciutto to keep it simple. For Italians, pizza is an evening meal, but of course you can have it anytime you please. And at the end of all that, you would like to lift yourself up, lift me up, tirami su. That is this great dessert that contains a bit of coffee. So that's why it lifts you up. Or of course, gelato. You can't leave Italy without having tasted the several places. Always ask the locals because there's so much gelato everywhere. I just obviously adore it. You can also splurge on gelato. There are this one I remember, it was absolutely worth I don't even want to remember how much, but it was extraordinary. So there is gelatos and gelatos, but there are plenty. And again, just ask the locals and we'll direct you or take you. And now that our tummies are full, then we can go back to, homework. We can go back to take a look at Ludus Magnum. At first it may not sound familiar, but this is where the gladiators were trained for their fights at the Colosseum. Colosseum, one of the 200 amphitheaters that were found at the territory of the former Roman Empire. Plenty theaters, but about 200 amphitheaters or double theaters. And inside, you can take a look at what has remained of the structure. Actually, the tunnels that were under the stage were not visible to the audience back then. They're visible to us now. You can see them here, and just a part of the stage that was restored. So it took 8 years to build the Colosseum, goes back to the 1st century, could take about 50,000 people. And of course, everybody likes to hear the stories about the gladiators and what was happening in this amphitheater. A lot. That's a tour in itself. Now, really close by, there is this huge empty valley that is known as the former Circus Maximus, or huge stadium. That is where, again, they had chariot races, and it was much deeper back in the past, about 15 feet or 5 meters. It silted in the Middle Ages. It was used as a farmland. And then the farms were removed in the late 1800s. And this is now like a national monument, empty as it is, used for big public events. There's a great view of the Palatine Hill, better in the afternoon when the sun is behind you, if you would like to take some nice pictures of the ruins of the Palatine Hill, where everything started. In 753, Rome was founded on this hill, and eventually the emperors lived there, and it gave us the word palace or palazzo. So the Palatine is one of the 7 hills of Rome, 7 hills, the original 7 hills of ancient Rome. There are about 30 humps and bumps, as a British friend of mine would say, but 7 are those historical hills. And we also do have some pyramids. You know, there's really the embarrassment of choice when it comes to what you would like to do, where you would like to go in Rome. Of course, as I mentioned, I did list a few things that we do visit with our tours, but there are so many that you can visit if you decide to extend your stay or come back. And this does look like a pyramid, but it's actually a tomb of an ancient Roman from 2000 years ago, built in the shape of a pyramid. This is one of the gates that make part of the 3rd century wall, 3rd century AD wall that's 13 miles long, that was built to prevent the so-called barbarians from entering Rome. So see, I'm trying to squeeze in about 3,000 years of history in about, well, 45 minutes, more or less. And something that I would warmly recommend for those who have more time is to visit the Gallery Borghese. On my site, you can find the presentation in detail about those amazing works of art collected by a cardinal who was the nephew of the Pope, Paul V, Cardinal Borghese. You go there to admire so much, but let's say most famously Bernini's statues. This is Bernini's David, King David, and also Bernini's Rape of Proserpine, the famous marble statue full of emotions, where Hades grabs Proserpine and takes her down to the underworld, and eventually she, well, becomes the queen of the underworld, the goddess of the underworld. And there are many more Baroque palaces if you are more into Baroque and how did the papal families live. There is this extraordinary museum, Doria Pamphiglia. The family is still around, and this museum is really worth visiting. And there is Palazzo Colonna, where we used to go on some of our events, and I hope we will go again. And it has peculiar opening hours, just let's say Saturday morning, but it's possible to organize private tours. But let's say if you are in Rome on Saturday morning, you may would like to see this hall where in the movie Roman Holiday, Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn look at each other, and I'm not going to tell you if they elope or not. You have to, I'm sure most of you know. But this is the hall where she finds out that he's a journalist. And again, it was part of our tour, Roman Holiday, and it's still part of some other tours, not the bridges. that I handle with my team of, we like to say we're kid-friendly colleagues and friends. Those are tours adapted to children. And also, of course, adults. We're friendly with adults too. And so that's just a little close-up of that extraordinary hall at the Palazzo Colonna. Or you may would like to just go for a leisurely stroll. And although this castle called Castel Sant'Angelo, not far away from the Vatican, just about 10 minutes walk, it is a museum, but you can just wander around the neighborhood and maybe cross the bridge, which is also pedestrian, and pick up your favorite Bernini's angel. He designed these angels. They're flanking the fence of the bridge. Each one carries a different so-called instrument of the Christ Passion. This one is carrying the column of the flagellation. And of course, Piazza Navona, it's included in most of the tours. Piazza Navona is arguably the most beautiful square in Rome. It was formerly, 2000 years ago, it was ancient Roman stadium. That's why it retains this peculiar shape, because the buildings that came in later centuries were built on top of the pre-existing structures. And in the very center, right in front of the Church of St. Agnes, there is the famous fountain by Bernini, again, the 4 river gods that represent 4 continents known at that time, surmounted by what looks like an ancient Egyptian obelisk, but it's slightly deceitful. It's actually 2000 years old ancient Roman knockoff. So that's one of our little stories that we tell. And also about how it was found out and all that it's not Egyptian. And you may would like to follow the Caravaggio's trail. We try to include Caravaggio wherever possible, especially the one in the St. Louis of France, if there is time. And he's this irrespectful artist. There's several of his works at the Gallery Borghese as well, but also in 3 churches in Rome. This is one of them, with the cycle of his paintings dedicated to Saint Matthew, the choosing of Matthew. Here is Jesus Christ coming as a light from that wall and choosing Matthew, the painter who at the end of the 1500s, beginning of the 1600s, changed the history of art with his realistic presentations of even saints, Mary and Jesus, famous for his dirty feet. Yeah, just like that. And you may be in mood of something completely different, which would be, for example, to the left, you can see some rationalist or fascist architecture surrounding the mausoleum of Emperor Augustus. Now, this is an incredible contrast. And just recently, this mausoleum opened after years and years of restorations, and it's really fascinating. So when you come to Rome, you just get to, okay, I like archaeology, architecture, food, just wandering around, Catholic churches, the Jewish history, anything, really. It's a bottomless treasure box. And we frequently try to just we see how old the kids are in the group, and then we ask them, did you bring any food for elephants? In any case, well, maybe. There's this little Bernini's elephant right behind the Pantheon. So there's also lizards and lions and plenty of fun animals to go on a safari in Rome as well. That's something that can be done. Or we teach everyone how to drink water from these fun fountains that look like big noses, and that's how we call them, il nasone, like a big nose. And what do you do with it? How do you drink water from that? Well, there's a hole, you press at the bottom, oops, the jet comes out. So everybody learns that in Rome. Or if we want to make sure nobody's saying any lie, well, it's difficult, of course, to include, for example, also the mouth of truth. But if you stay longer and if that's something you want to do, it's there. And it's also in the movie Roman Holiday. And you know how it goes. If you say a lie, that mouth might bite off your fingers. So it's even popular in Asia. it found its way in one of the famous manga comic books. So the Mouth of Truth is everywhere internationally. And back to extraordinary fascist architecture. This is the stadium where when people ask for specific tours, then some would like to see some of that kind of architecture. And I find the stadium really extraordinary. Even that huge big building behind in the backdrop, it's also 1930s Mussolini's period, and that is the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Or there is a whole neighborhood that was built in the let's say late 1930s, early 1940s, preparing for the big world exhibition that, well, never took place because of the Second World War. This is the popular Square Colosseum from that time. Lovely at night as well, and currently it's rented by Fendi. It's headquarters of the fashion brand Fendi. They just had extraordinary exhibition of one of their famous purses, baguette, but each region of Italy, there were 20 made a specific kind of a purse using their arts and crafts. So it was really nice. So it's still on for another month, I believe. And modern architecture, there's Zaha Hadid designed the Maxi Museum with her famous flowing architecture. Or also recently, the architect whose name is Fuksas designed this Congress Center that's not normally open to visits, but if there are events, just recently there was an event dedicated to contemporary art. For the first time, Rome has a really great fair with contemporary art. Normally you would go to Turin or Milan for that. And inside this glass building, there's this cloud, La Nuvola. And you see how small people are looking at the escalator stairs, and the whole Congress Center is inside this cloud. And you may like it or not, but it really is striking. I find it striking. And if you really would like to see all that and even more, what you have to do is come back to Rome, not just once or stay longer, but in case you wanted to come back, well, you have to go to the Trevi Fountain, and you have to, well, throw that coin down the drain with your right hand over your left shoulder, and definitely you will come back to Rome. I'm personally from Croatia, and I came to Rome in 1985 as a tourist, and I'm always joking, I must have dropped the whole wallet into that fountain, because in 92 I moved to Rome, so very soon it's going to be, well, 30 years, and I'm so happy I made it my city, the city that I really love. And if you enjoyed this presentation, I hope you did, you will come on Talk Tours, or you will just come to Rome and enjoy it. On my site you can find several presentations on different aspects, on pilgrimages and architecture, and a lot of things. I'm preparing also something on food, and there's going to be more Gallery Borghese and all that. And if you're invited, it's for free, it's there. And if you have any questions that you may have forgotten to ask during this event, or something pops into your mind, there's my email, and I'll be happy to answer anytime. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Olga. You know, I lived in Rome, as you know, for 5 years, and it's still not enough time. You made me want to go back again and again to the Eternal City. So we so appreciate your taking the time to create this very creative presentation for us. And we hope that all of you out there yearn to come to Rome again, or for the first time if you've never been. I think Dustin is going to open it up to questions, and I do see there are a few on the chat. So I'm going to turn it over to Dustin. And again, thank you so much, Olga. So
thank you, Brenda. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tauck, for being in my life.
That's very nice. Thank you, Brenda and Olga. That was a wealth of information in 45 minutes time, going all through Rome. Thank you so much for joining us. We do have some questions coming in. I want to start though. I always like to ask, you know Rome so well. You're in depth with everything. On a Sunday afternoon, what are you doing yourself in Rome, Olga, in your city? Where are you going to enjoy your day?
On Sunday afternoon.
If you're not working, of course.
If I'm not working, obviously. Well, on Sunday afternoon, I'm actually resting from shopping. And I know it sounds like, is this woman going to a TJ Maxx? No, since we do not have TJ Maxx, which is horrible. We have also, it's very near where I live. It's called Porta Portese. It's a flea market. It's enormous. And usually on Sunday, my friends come over, everybody loves it. And I know little stands. So what do you want? You know, people who haven't been frequently. So we just love to stroll through the market. And of course, we know the streets, which are kind of, that's not interesting. Oh, here, you know, here is this Max Mara stand only for 20 euro. And so we just enjoy frequently. My friends come over on Sunday and we just stroll through the markets and we, well, watch movies. But let's say in Rome, if you would like to do more sightseeing, I'm really lucky to make a part of this great community of tour guides. And since the lockdown started, actually, as soon as we could go out on the streets, we started organizing tours. And I'm following my colleagues. Like this afternoon, I followed an archaeologist, one of the colleagues who took us to one of the national museums, archaeological museums, the baths of Diocletian. Yesterday, I went to Vittoriano, the big white monument, with another colleague who specialized in Italian unification. So frequently, at least once a week, I follow, and there's more events. So I must say that there's plenty to learn, even after 30 years. Not that you haven't been there, but there's always something new to hear.
Right. Thank you, Olga. A question way earlier when you were showing some of the mosaics, one guest commented that some of them looked Byzantine, and they wanted to know what the connection was there.
The connection is cultural historical. In the 8th century, there was the so-called the period of the iconoclasm in the Eastern Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, when the representing of the images was banned. Because it reflects what the Old Testament says. So there was the emperor in the Eastern Roman Empire who said no more images in the churches, no more icons. And the artists actually flocked to Europe. They brought their art with them. So it influenced the medieval art all over Europe. And so it's Byzantine influenced. That kind of art is sort of bidimensional. There doesn't have like 3D. Like Renaissance, because those are actually the images that take us into another world. So they do not have to be represented in 3D. But yes, it is Byzantine influence all the way until Giotto, let's say, and the Renaissance. It influenced even the art in the Catholic churches.
Great, thank you.
The iconoclasm was over, let's say it lasted a few decades or 100 years or so. And eventually they decided to, well, yes, we can represent icons, but we can represent the saints and Jesus, but it kind of caused this movement of the artists from with that background into Europe.
Great, thank you. A couple guests were wondering about the Sistine Chapel and just visiting and picture taking, which I know is always a topic. So do you know the latest kind of the limitations with picture taking? Is it the same as it's always been?
Unfortunately, yes. In the Vatican museums, which are extraordinary, we see Raphael and the tapestries and statues, and it's allowed to take pictures everywhere except in the Sistine Chapel. So there was a question of copyright in the past because of the cleaning that was done by that Japanese TV. They had the copyright of the pictures during and after the cleaning and the restoration. And from what I know, it expired, but they're trying to prevent, especially during the day, the chaos, you know, and all those selfies and all that craze. But of course, we wouldn't do that. They know that, but simply they kind of try to be consistent. And I cannot say, it did happen that occasionally a guard would say, okay, but that was in the past. Who knows, will they be in a better mood when we come back? I hope so.
We always hope. Okay, this might be a joint question, actually, if I can bring you in here, Brenda, as well. Some guests have some questions about the hotels in Rome, specifically the Hotel Majestic that I believe we stay in. Could you speak to anything about the hotels? I mean, anything special or particular about them?
Well, I can answer that we have 7 or 8 tours that go to Rome. We use the Hotel Majestic on our week in Rome and the Amalfi Coast. And it was funny, the Majestic was the very first hotel that we used on our first Classic Italy tour. Because of the popularity of Italy and especially Rome, we've expanded to 7 or 8 different hotels. Most of our hotels are in the Via Veneto area where the Hotel Majestic is. Easily a walking distance from the Piazza di Spagna and to the center. And there are a number of restaurants there. Most of our hotels are all more or less 5-star. Although I hate to use the star system in Italy because it doesn't really equate all the time, but we do try to use hotels in Rome that reflect the heritage and the culture of the city. And that's one thing that you feel the Italian design is very important to when you're staying in a hotel in Italy, that you feel like you're in Italy and not in any city per se. So I hope that helps.
Thanks, Brenda. Olga, anything to add, or is that okay?
I like all the hotels that Doug takes people to. I like the Excelsior with its touch of old style, old world, or Parco dei Principi, where we go with the bridges, or Splendid Royale. These are all really great hotels, and a lovely area where the emperors and the popes lived, and now we come with our groups. I believe that speaks for itself. Really, they're lovely.
It's quite a contrast. They're so interesting, right? Just to be able to stay in such an old place that is, revived and new, and you can really think about the history and where you actually are at the moment. It's pretty incredible. There's not too many more questions. I mean, you did a fantastic job. I think you floored everyone. There's a ton of great positive comments with all the information you shared. Is there anything you want to end with, Olga, or any other tidbit you wanted to get across about Rome?
About Rome, it's so much. I tried to squeeze in these 3,000 years of history in 45 minutes. Well, I really may invite everyone to watch, if you would like to know a little more. There's a relatively similar presentation I did. It's called A Day in Rome, and it's on my site for free. And then several aspects of Rome are also there if you would like to go deeper into some of the art collections. And there's even one on the Sistine Chapel, but it's on my YouTube. I did it for a nonprofit organization in US. So there would be a list of things to do and read and watch the movies. It took me 30 years and I still feel like, oh, I haven't been there. I haven't seen this. Rome is really inspirational. And if you're coming to Italy, Rome is definitely a place to see. But then again, what's my favorite place? Oh, is it Sorrento? Oh, is it Venice? My God, maybe Florence. So it's so difficult to say. Italy is really, really unique. And Rome is mine, so I love it more than anything else, but I feel happy. There are places in Italy like Venice and Sorrento, for example, where I just get off the train or whatever it is, and I'm just like happy just like that.
That's amazing. Everyone wants to be in a place like that, right? You're happy just walking.
Yeah. Well, in Sorrento, a little limoncello helps. But
that's a great way to end. Olga, do you mind going back a slide and just putting your information up one more time? If there is some guests interested in contacting you.
There we go.
There you go,
Olgarome.
olgarome.com. And yes, to those who are wondering if this presentation was recorded, yes, it is. It will be sent out to all of you tomorrow afternoon at some point, once we get a little editing done with it. And it'll also live on our blog page, The Taucker, indefinitely. So if you do need to access it again or want to share it with someone else, you can definitely do so. Or you can go to Olga's site and check out even more Rome content that she has as well. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining our last event of the year. Thank you, Olga, for sending us off 2021 with a fantastic presentation. We thank you again to those who joined multiple of these throughout the year. Thank you so much for engaging with us. And thank you, Brenda, for joining many of these as we go to Italy a lot on our presentations. And Brenda is all things Italy, so she joins a lot. So again, just big thank yous overall. Happy holidays, and we wish you all the best, and enjoy the end of the year, and hope to see you out there in Italy next year. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Ciao,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.